In this video, I'm going to run you through the sixth element of design, which is value. I'm going to go through what value is, why it's important, how to measure value using the zone system, and I'm also going to talk about value in relation to color. So let's start from the top. What is value? So value is just another word for the luminosity or the brightness of an image. So essentially it is anything that's from pure black all the way to pure white. So in the dynamic range video, we covered a few different ways you can measure value using either the zebra stripes or the histogram. We also talked about in the exposure video how you can use the tools in your camera, such as shutter speed, aperture, and ISO in order to control the amount of value that is in your shot. So now let's talk about why value is important. For one of the most important reasons is because it adds depth to your image. So as we talked about in form, using that full tonal range of light can really help make your shots look more 3D. And if you're starting to pick up on a trend here, one of the most important things in photography is trying to make your images look 3D. You want that realism factor to come through. So using value is a great way to do that. So for example, check out this shot right here. As you can see, the leaves have a ton of tonal range in this shot. So that means we have very bright leaves at the closer front part of the image, and we have darker shadows below. And we have everything from dark all the way to light. So that makes this image feel really 3D, like you could almost just reach in and grab those leaves. The second reason that value is important in an image is because it helps add contrast. So when you have light points and you have dark points, it helps divide the image into different sections. So this allows you to understand what parts are being illuminated and what parts are being hidden from the eye. So check out this shot right here. As you can see, I almost have it lined up like a yin-yang sign, where you have one part of the image that's lighter than the other half. And then I also have that leaf in there, which helps add even more luminance value to make that part pop and make it the subject of the image. So value is what is drawing our eye to that yellow leaf in the shot, and then secondly to that division of the shot right down the middle. The third reason that value is important is because it helps add a visual hierarchy to the image. So by illuminating certain parts of the image, we're telling the viewer where to look. So using this tool, we can guide the viewer through the journey of our shot. So check out this image right here, where we have this staircase that's being lit up in this almost curvy motion and then goes deeper into the descent of the woods. I purposely made sure that the staircase was well illuminated because that's where I want your eye to go. I want it to begin on that visual journey of going deeper into the woods. And then I purposely made sure that the elements outside of it were shadowed out because you don't really need your attention drawn to those edges. You want them right in the middle of that shot here. So as you can see, value is controlling all these three different narratives within a shot. So let's take a moment to quickly run through the psychology associations. So generally images that have a lot more light in them usually feel fluffier, airier, happier, more positive. While on the other side, images that contain a lot of dark, shadows, more depth to them are usually a bit more moody. They're a bit more intense, maybe a bit heavier on the eye. So let's take a look at some leaves to demonstrate this. So the first image here, we got these aspen trees right here, which feel very happy, yellow vibes, positivity, airy, looks like a fun place to be hanging out. Contrast that with these leaves here, which are isolated into that darkness. They're overhanging an edge. They're very fickle, very small. It feels much more like a heavier scene. It's darker. There's that one orange leaf to really make it feel like it's got some loneliness involved in it. So these two contrasting images are a great way to demonstrate how you can use luminance value to give off certain tones within your shots. So now let's take a second to talk about the zone system. So this is another way of measuring luminance value within a shot that I haven't covered yet. It was invented by Ansel Adams, who is widely considered to be one of the grandfathers of landscape photography. He's basically the guy who made it famous. So if you're into history, I'd recommend going and checking him out. But anyway, he devised a system to categorize light from 0 to 100. In this system, 100 is pure black and 0 is pure white. Everything in between that is a zone from 1 to 11. So generally, if you were to look at your image and pick a certain spot on it, you would be able to sort the luminance value of those pixels into one of those 11 zones. And you could actually do this within Photoshop. If you go into the Windows tab and open up the info panel, you can go ahead and run your cursor over a single pixel and see what percentage it's in and therefore sort it into a certain zone. So the important thing about these zones is that they're each separated by one stop of light. So generally, if you want to move from zone 3 to 4, you have to adjust your exposure using aperture, shutter speed, and ISO to compensate for a full stop of light, as they call it. So the general theory behind this system is you want to cover basically all the zones within your shot in terms of the pixels you're providing. So you want shots that have dark spots and light spots and midtones. You don't want too much light spots or it's going to look blown out. You don't want too many dark spots or it's going to look way too dark to the eye. And you don't want too many midtones or else it's just going to look flat and not have that much contrast to it. And obviously this is ruling out the fact that there are reasons you might want to do this artistically and break this rule. It's not the perfect system. However, it is a generally good guideline if you're just starting photography and you're learning how to expose your images properly. So now let's talk about color and its relation to value. So as we talked about in the color video, value is one of the 3 components of color, and it's essentially how much white and how much dark are within each color. So there are different ways that you could measure this. So for example, let's start with the color wheel. So if you look at the color wheel here, you can see that as you get closer to the middle of the color wheel, we are getting more white in those colors and they are thus therefore lighter. On the opposite side of the spectrum, as we get further away, you can see there are more dark luminance values in those colors on the outskirts. Another way you can measure this is with the histogram. So if you remember back in the dynamic range video, we talked about how the histogram works. So I'll give you a quick refresher if you don't remember. Essentially, the left side of the diagram constitutes how many pixels in the shot are dark and have shadows, and the right side constitutes how many pixels are highlights and have whites in them. So if you look at a histogram, you could also see that there's colors on them. And I purposely didn't go over this when we talked about the histograms earlier, so I could show you now. The colors included on the histogram in Lightroom are red, green, and blue, to stand for the 3 primary colors RGB, and then also their respective opposites, so cyan, yellow, and magenta. So let's pull up this shot right here. So you can see we got this beautiful dock taken in Guatemala, and you can see the histogram as it is related to it. So the most glaringly obvious is those blue colors that are popping up in the middle of the histogram. And as you can see, if you look at the image, we have some nice blue midtones. There's not too many dark blues and there's not too many light blues. So we have a lot of those mid values there. On the right side, as you can see, we got that red that is popping up. And that is because if you look at the sun, you can see we have some very bright red colors in that sun area, thus putting them on the right side of the histogram. On the left side, you can see there are some yellows, which are in the deeper, darker, shadowy parts of the clouds, and that's why those yellows are popping there. Then you can see there's a little bit of the other colors popping around too here and there, but those are the most prevalent ones to look out for. So that is color and how it relates to value. All right, let's go ahead and hop into the next video.